Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, November 9th. America has a new president.
America will no longer settle for anything less than the best. We must reclaim our country's destiny and dream big and bold and daring. We have to do that. We're going to dream of things for our country, and beautiful things and successful things once again. I want to tell the world community that while we will always put America's interests first, we will deal fairly with everyone,
At this hour, America is waking up to a new reality as Donald Trump was elected the 45th president of the United States, shocking and overturning all the predictions of a Democratic win. Joining me in the studio with a roundup of one of the most dramatic turnabouts in American political history is IBA's political correspondent, Kalev Ben-David. Kalev?
Thanks, Laura. Hillary Clinton's election day began on a positive note with a quick win shortly after the polls closed in the New England state of Vermont. But it soon became clear that the polls had underestimated support for Donald Trump, as a high turnout of working-class white men put the Republican candidate in position to win such key battleground states as North Carolina, Florida, and Ohio. Clinton scored strong among minorities, winning votes from 2/3 of Hispanics and 9 out of every 10 African Americans, though in total numbers less than Barack Obama did in his 2 election victories. Trump held on to traditional Republican strongholds in the South and West, such as Georgia and Texas, helped by record turnouts in rural communities and small towns. It soon became clear he was moving faster than Clinton toward the minimum 270 electoral college votes needed to secure the presidency. And the decisive blow against Clinton came when she narrowly lost such traditional Democratic Midwest states as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, where blue-collar workers were won over by Trump's stand against trade deals and the globalization of the economy. While some state results are still not finalized, Trump will likely end up with over 300 electoral votes, even though Clinton may yet narrowly win the popular vote in the final counting. Riding Trump's coattails were Republican congressional candidates, with the GOP hanging on to a narrow majority in the Senate and retaining its more substantial lead in the House of Representatives. Clinton conceded to Trump in a private phone call early this morning, but skipped a concession speech, leaving it to campaign chairman John Podesta to address the devastated supporters who had gathered in New York hoping for a victory rally.
I want you to know, I want every person in this hall to know, and I want every person across the country who supported Hillary to know that your voices and your enthusiasm means so much to her and to Tim and to all of us. We are so proud of you. And we are so proud of her. She's done an amazing job, and she is not done yet. So thank you for being with her. She has always been with you. I have to say this tonight. Good night. We will be back.
Clinton has just issued a statement. She will make a concession speech within the coming hour. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a statement congratulating Trump, describing him as a true friend of Israel. Netanyahu said he looked forward to working with the president-elect on strengthening to new heights the alliance between Israel and the United States. Earlier today, I talked with Bar-Ilan University political science professor Gerald Steinberg on what Trump's Mideast policy might look like, and I asked him what Israel in particular should expect from him.
Depends on whether the United States now is going to be completely looking inward, which may be the case. His first obligation, and he talked about it in his acceptance speech, or in his victory speech, was to unite the American public. They're totally divided. And there's a huge amount of distrust, hostility, and for America to be great again, to use Trump's language, he's going to have to focus a lot internally. What he does externally remains a huge question. We don't know who his advisors are. We don't even know, and Trump may not even have a foreign policy. He was all over the map on this and on other issues. So I think Israel has to wait and see if America can pull its act together
Donald Trump has made conflicting statements about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and how he would handle the peace process. How do you expect him to act on it?
We've learned in general with politicians that what they say in election campaigns and what they do in office are very different, and with Trump it's probably multiply that by 1,000. It's going to have to depend on a lot of different factors. It's going to play out in different ways. I think Trump is generally inclined to be more sympathetic to the Israeli position, more understanding of the Israeli position, less tolerant of Palestinian incitement. And he will not be Obama, but how that plays itself out, how the regional politics are going to take place, he's going to have to make some, he and his government are going to have to make some very difficult decisions.
Donald Trump has talked about moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. What do you think the odds are of that actually happening?
If I was going to go along with the Nate Silver school of giving probabilities, I'd give it a 20% probability, maybe up from 10 and not more than that. When all the people come in from the State Department and elsewhere and tell Trump all the problems that's going to create for American positions, American troops, American embassies, facilities around the Middle East, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, he's going to come up with a reason probably not to do it.
How do you think the Trump victory is going to be received in the Arab capitals in the region?
I think there's a certain amount of anguish. We already see it among some Arab leaders, but at the same time, in terms of some of the concerns that Obama was pushing too hard, too fast, we saw the president of Egypt, al-Sisi, congratulate Trump very quickly on that. There may be a sense that now we're going to at least be able to work with someone who understands realpolitik, the realism, the conflicts in the Middle East, and not try to develop policy on the basis of hopes and theories and principles which are very hard to apply.
How do you think the Iranians are going to accept his victory after he's talked about canceling the U.S. nuclear agreement with Iran?
In terms of Iran, I think there's a big concern there. The Iranians may see this as a victory for Putin, for their ally, for Russia, and a weakening of America. That's going to be a big problem for Israel. Or they may see this as a possibility the United States on the agreements that were made with Iran and other things will be far more specific. Trump said he's going to nullify the agreement with Iran. He may not know what's in it yet, but is he actually going to do that? That could be a concern for Iran. So all the options are open. Everybody's going to be following it very closely.
Kalev, how did Trump pull off this stunning upset, and why did the pollsters get it so wrong?
Laura, first of all, Trump defied the political experts with a new type of political campaign. He relied on personal appearances and rallies and on his media coverage of his appearances rather than building a traditional political organization. That's really something new in U.S. politics. He also tapped in that strong desire for change and anger at the establishment, populist anger, especially against white males in the United States. And of course, he was helped by the WikiLeaks revelations about Hillary, about her emails, and the FBI investigation into her. Why the polls were wrong? There were quite a few undecided voters going up into the last day of the election who appeared to have broken for Trump. But there's also talk of a shy Trump vote. Something similar to what we had in the last election in Israel, when supposedly some supporters of Netanyahu were not willing to tell the pollsters they were supporting the prime minister for because they were against the establishment, and that may have played a factor here.
Kalev, the Democrats suffered a devastating defeat, not only for the presidency, but failing to retake the Senate. How can they recover from this blow?
Well, certainly the Democrats are going to have to regroup, but let's point out that it looks like Clinton did win, or it's going to be sort of almost tied in the popular vote. The majorities, Republican majorities in the Senate and the House are pretty thin. So the Democrats are not in terrible shape, and there are certain trends, voting trends, that favor them, growing Latino voters. But clearly the Democrats are going to have to be able to offer, especially for the president, new faces. People are not tied with the establishment. Maybe look outside politics for some new people, and they're going to have to find a way to discuss economic issues to relate to those Midwest Rust Belt voters, and also address their concerns about such issues as immigration better than Clinton did.
Kalev, how do we know how the Jewish vote went in this election?
Well, according to one exit poll, it went very similar to past elections, which is Donald Trump got about 24% of the poll, of the vote, 70 of the Jewish vote, 70% of the Jewish vote went for Clinton. That's actually worse for Trump than Romney did. He got closer to 80% of the Jewish vote. It's funny, Jews are, even though they are part of the white majority, still vote more like they're one of the minorities in the United States. And it could be that Trump, for whatever reason, didn't stress the Israel issue. He had an opportunity there, especially because Clinton didn't want to discuss support for Israel after the battle against Bernie Sanders, and that was a hot topic issue. But he, for whatever reason, he preferred that his Jewish son-in-law, Jared Kushner, be the spokesperson on Israel-related issues. And that could be he didn't want to alienate some of his constituents that don't like the idea of America funding any foreign state, including the Jewish one.
Kalev Ben-David, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
While much of the world reacted with shock to the Trump victory, official messages of congratulations were issued from some governments, vowing to continue cooperation with the world's biggest superpower. IBA's Elon Aslan-Levy has this report.
A world is collapsing before our very eyes. That's how France's ambassador to the US reacted to the news of Trump's victory in an unguardedly undiplomatic tweet. World leaders had almost all expected to work with America's most senior stateswoman. Today, they reacted nervously at news they would soon sit across the table from Mr. Trump. In Russia, deputies in the State Duma reacted with applause on receiving the news. Russia was a central issue in this debate, as the US intelligence community accused the Kremlin of being behind the various email hacks that so embarrassed the Democratic campaign. President Putin congratulated Trump, expressing hope to rehabilitate Russo-American relations. But across Europe, huge shock, in the words of the German defense minister, who questioned whether this meant the end of Pax Americana, the post-war liberal order underpinned by the United States. Western capitals are concerned the Trump presidency could overturn existing pillars of the world order in light of Trump's stated admiration for Russian President Putin, his suggestion that Japan and South Korea develop their own nuclear weapons, his vow to undo global climate change accords, and his expressed reticence about NATO. French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault said Trump's personality raised questions, seeking clarifications on the fate of existing transnational policy on Iran, Syria and climate change. In NATO, cautious concern.
US leadership is as important as ever. Our alliance has brought together America's closest friends in times of peace and of conflict for almost 70 years. A strong NATO is good for the United States, and it is good for Europe.
But still, leaders extended the requisite, if perfunctory, courtesies. British Prime Minister Theresa May congratulated Trump, saying she looks forward to working with him to build on UK-US ties. Australia added to the congratulations.
Americans understand that they have no stronger ally, no better friend than Australia. And the enduring national interests of our two countries are such that our relationship will continue to be strong. We will continue to work together as we have done with many presidents in years past to take on the challenges of our time.
China said it looked forward to working with the new administration to promote consistent, healthy and stable China-US relations. Egypt's President al-Sisi congratulated Trump personally on the phone. Most ominously, however, Trump's victory is providing a boost to populist movements across Europe, which hope to rise to power on the back of the same anti-globalization, anti-immigration and anti-establishment rhetoric that propelled Trump. The deputy leader of the far-right Alternative for Germany, Beatrix von Storck, called Trump's victory a sign that citizens of the Western world want a clear change in policy. And France's Marine Le Pen offered enthusiastic congratulations, with an eye clearly on next year's presidential race in which she, the National Front candidate, is expected to make the runoff. However world leaders' reactions develop over time, one thing is for sure: no more Donald or Mr. Trump. From now, it's Mr. President-elect.
Despite a sense of uncertainty, the Palestinian leadership congratulated the Republican candidate. Top Palestinian negotiator Saib Erekat said he doesn't expect U.S. positions on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to change under Trump's presidency.
Well, the United States is not a country of moods of individuals. It's a country that specifies its foreign policy in accordance with its interests. And as I told you, for both the Republicans and the Democrats, realizing the two-state solution on the 1967 lines is a higher national American interest, and I think this will continue.
In Israel, there were mixed feelings to the news of Donald Trump's victory. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan went to the streets of Jerusalem and brought us these reactions.
It was a long night at the American consulate in Jerusalem, but the sun came up to a new reality that had some folks in Israel overjoyed, but others shaking their heads in disbelief that Donald Trump had actually won the U.S. elections for president.
Oh, my God. A wave of relief went over me. I was afraid to turn on the TV this morning. I said, no, I got to turn it on. I got to know. I got to know. No, I don't want to know. It's not going to be real. I don't want. I turned it on and I went, oh, heaven.
You think Trump is going to be good for Israel?
I think he's going to be better than Hillary would be. And I think Trump is going to be much better for everybody, even if he's not perfect. Even if he doesn't do everything he said he was going to do. Give me somebody that does.
I'm shocked. I'm in shock. I think it's a travesty. I'm sorry.
Why?
I think, I don't know what he stands for except bigotry and sexism, and he's a misogynist. I just don't understand how he could be voted in.
Maybe he's good for Israel.
Maybe, but let's see. Let's see if he moves the capital, makes this the capital and moves the embassy here. Let's see. I don't know, maybe. I don't love her either, but I think he's a lot worse.
We go to bed one night and Clinton is leading in the polls. We wake up and Trump has won the elections. What do you think about that?
As Israelis, we are quite known with such a phenomenon. It happened here in Israel more than once. I must say that the Americans had two very complicated choices this time, so I don't know who is the best. I have no opinion of my own, actually. I didn't like each of them.
I voted for Trump. I might not be very popular, but I did vote for him. I didn't think that Hillary was the right choice, and I'm very hopeful that the country will now move in a very positive direction.
Israel cannot rely on a person which one day says something and the other day says another thing. And that's why I'm very unhappy, and to be more precise, I'm disappointed.
I voted for Donald Trump, but I voted against Hillary. And as you see, my hat is all for making America great, because I feel when America is great and back on its feet, which it hasn't been for a long, long time, then Israel will be strong, and Israel will be even greater.
News of Republican candidate Donald Trump's win sent global markets into mayhem, with indications that Wall Street could suffer its biggest plunge yet. Analysts were assessing a tumble of as much as 5% as the dollar began to plunge against the yen and euro. However, Trump's victory speech, where he pledged to serve all the American people, succeeded in calming a somewhat troubled market and saw the dollar recover from an early slide and European markets suffering smaller losses than initially feared. Britain's FTSE this morning tumbled by almost 2% at the start of trading with a heavy sell-off, but the fall was not as dramatic as expected. Asian markets closed lower, with money flowing into safe haven stocks, gold, and currencies, including the yen. At the end of today's trading, Japan's Nikkei 225 closed down at 5.4%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong traded 2.2% lower, with the Shanghai Composite losing 0.6%. Turning to local news, the Army struck a Syrian artillery battery shortly after an Iran mortar shell exploded near the Israeli border, a spillover from the ongoing fighting between Syrian rebel and regime forces on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. No injuries or damage were reported. In the West Bank, soldiers shot and wounded a Palestinian assailant who attempted to stab a soldier with a screwdriver at an intersection near the entrance to the town of Hawara, south of Nablus. The soldier's bulletproof vest prevented injury. After being treated by medics at the site, the 32-year-old assailant from Tulkarm was transferred to Beilinson Hospital in Petah Tikva, suffering from a gunshot wound to the stomach. Interpol rejected a Palestinian request to join the International Police Organization at a General Assembly meeting in Indonesia. 62 of the 190 member states voted against the Palestinian proposal to hold a vote on their membership bid. The decision was touted by Israel, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issuing a statement congratulating the world police body, saying it shows Israel's standing in the international community is changing. The Foreign Ministry and police also issued statements praising the move, saying the vote represents a major achievement and the success of Israeli diplomacy. For weeks, Israel sought to block Palestinian membership to the international organization, lobbying member states and expressing fears that, if accepted, Palestinian officials would leak information to terror groups. The 2018 Football World Qualifier match between Israel and Albania, scheduled for this Saturday night, was moved to another venue after 4 suspects affiliated with the Islamic State were arrested for planning an attack against the Israeli team. In Jerusalem, the Counterterrorism Bureau confirmed that threats to attack the Israeli team had been received and urged Israeli fans not to travel to the match. Due to the threat, the Albanian Football Association asked FIFA to move the game to the city of Elbasan, which is closer to the Albanian capital and an easier venue to secure. The Israeli squad will be escorted by a security detail. Israel has so far 6 points from 3 matches, losing its opener to Italy 3-1 and defeating Macedonia and Liechtenstein 2-1. In local money matters, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. Turning to the forecast, and temperatures will drop along the coastal areas, but will remain unseasonably warm in the mountainous regions. Here are the highs and lows for the next 24 hours at home and abroad. And that's all for this newscast. Eilon Aslan-Levy will be here tomorrow. Until then, I'm Laura Cornfield wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.